Hello and welcome back to League Talk, the podcast all about coaching, management and all things League of Legends. My name is AJ and on today's episode is Esports Behavioural Analyst. Now, that was quite a mouthful. I was practicing this all day because I wanted to make sure that this didn't come out all over the place. But it's Urszula, so welcome Urszula. Thank you ever so much for your time. Why don't you give us a little introduction about yourself? It could be absolutely anything.
Hi. I'm Ula. You can call me Ula. It will be easier to pronounce my name. And I've been to esports for like 5 years now, and I'm a behavior analyst as well as performance coach. So I focus on basically getting the teams to the next level. Mm-hmm. So there is always something that is going on in the team, and I'm a type of person that is sitting somewhere in the background and is just trying to push the players the right direction. Mm-hmm. I love what I've been doing right now. I'm focusing only on esport. I used to be also a team manager. I've been managing a team of more than 20 people, actually 2 teams at the same time total. Mm-hmm. That will be 20 people. And that is my actually background. I come from management and I graduated business psychology. And it's really good to have the insight from that perspective because it helps me to understand how the teams perform, how they work from the inside, how to do the recruitment for the team, how to find the best match, mm-hmm. so the teams are capable of achieving their maximum of the capabilities they can have. So right now I focus only on esport, and I love what I'm doing.
Amazing. Yeah, I mean, for me this is super interesting because I've spoken to psychologists, I've spoken to sports psychologists, I've spoken to lots of different people in lots of different fields, all to do with esports, but I've actually never come across the term behavioural analyst. And that nearly came out horribly then. But why don't we get straight into sort of what you're doing and what you do, really? Because I've had a read over your website. I familiarised myself with it pretty well. But I'm sure my understanding of it is just the basics, So why don't you give sort of an overview of the work you do? I noticed there was the 5-step process, that some of the things that you were popping on the website were super, super interesting. So from your perspective, giving a little overview of that might be really nice.
Okay, so basically a behavior analyst is a person that is capable of reading certain behaviors, recognizing certain patterns. And for me, since actually I was a child, it was very easy to read a person, to recognize whether this is a friendly personality, whether the person is having some issues, and people were very, very open to me. So I don't know, it's like kind of my natural skill, that it's very easy for me to understand and recognize what is going to happen, and who is the person and what the person is struggling with. And actually I'm using it quite a lot in my work, and very often for me it's like very important when I come to the team environment to first recognize what is going on in there. So normally how I work is before I arrive to the team, I also chit chat with the players a little bit, just to get to know them, to find out what are the issues they're struggling with. I mean, it's not always that on the first discussion everybody will be opening up to me.
Yeah, of course.
But at least from what they're saying, I can grasp like what are their issues, and if I sense that they're not honest or not saying true, then for me it's a signal that this is something that may not be clicking right now in the team. So for me, the recognition, the first, like even if it's a 20-minute chat or something, that gives me quite a lot, because I do recognize and the feelings, the emotions during the discussion. So for me, it's like a very good draft of what I should be doing when I'm with the team.
Sure.
So
that's the first step, isn't it? Recognition, just to be
recognition, and then I kind of design or diagnose what's going on, whether there's a trust issue, whether there's a issue with the players, whether I don't know, like there's a conflict or something like that. Or very often simply there's a burnout or blah blah blah. There's like a lot of stuff going on in the team. I'm trying to diagnose. I'm trying to find out like what's in there. So I'm just trying to figure out from all the discussions I had with the players, with the management, very often the analysts are very helpful because these are the people that the players trust a lot, and they talk a lot with the players, and they know a lot. So these are also the people that I'm trying to find out what's going on. And then I'm trying to design my work with the team. So according to the information I've gathered, I'm kind of crafting my workshops with the team. So I'm preparing some exercises, some theory for them, and then I'm implementing it on place. So I'm arriving to the team, getting to know them. Also, I never jump on them straight away. I always have this one day to observe, to let's say confirm what I've discovered. Sometimes I'm adjusting it. Sometimes it's actually fine, and I'm also consulting it with the managers very often, just to get to know whether what I will be doing is actually fine with them. And then there's this period of evaluating. So the managers just tell me whether we should continue with it or should just something different. And during my time with the team, I very often I speak a lot with the players individually. We talk about different things. Very often I could tell that from the game related things into the girlfriend's issues and so on and so forth. So you could be laughing, but I've been dumping 3 girlfriends already.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah, but these are the things that have impact on performance.
Of course, yeah.
So for the players, having a person like myself where they can vent out, when they can ask for an advice, and I'm a girl, so from some perspective it's easier for them. Like, even they are asking sometimes, what would you buy her for the birthday, or whatever. So I need to have this close relationship, and I need to have this option to be honest, but at the same time I keep a lot of confidence with the players. I when I speak individually with the players and there are issues with other players and so on and so forth, I'm trying to figure out my own way how to solve the problem, not to get the relationship in the team somehow burnt out or something. I've never said that he said she said, but I'm just trying to figure out my own way to fix the issues inside the team. So all those steps, these are the elements that help me to get. Then once I'm in the team, there's this constant process of, again, recognizing new issues, diagnosing them, and then fixing them step by step. What is worth mentioning is that very often teams get to me because, we have an issue with one of the players. Could you help us out? I'm like, yeah, of course, but it's never an issue with one of the players,
of course.
It's always something bigger that is, one person that is more emotional than the rest, and this person is actually, showing some signals that the manager or the coach should be catching quicker to, prevent certain situations to happen. So then it's always that I need to speak with one more player. Then when one player is like absolutely fine after discussion with me, then the rest of the players want to chit chat, want to improve their performance. So for me, achieving their performance peak is really important, and I normally doing it by, first of all, facilitating their comfort zone, like teaching them how to be comfortable in the team, and then I'm trying to maximize the results by applying specific theories, and so on and so forth. So it's like you could compare it to first getting closer to the team and then just maximizing, picking their performance, basically.
Super interesting. There's so many different things there, and I think one of the huge things is, I guess this is an issue or something that has to be tackled in coaching, like any form of coaching, any form of management, is that everyone's so vastly different. So this seems to me like it's something that involves a great deal of emotional intelligence, and that's something that you spoke about. You said when you were a little bit younger, maybe that's what that is sort of like a talent, if that makes sense. Maybe you are talented in the sense of your emotional intelligence is probably higher than the average person, right? And to see a situation and to be able to understand the positives, the negatives, where this person might be coming from, the side of their coin that they're looking at. There's so many different things. It takes so much more than just sort of understanding how to implement a theory, right?
What helps a lot in that is the experience, because when you are around of people all the time, and I started my professional career around 12 years ago. That was when I had my first job, and actually I've been teaching there back then. I've been a teacher.
Okay.
So that also
Helps.
showed me how to behave, how young people behave. And I was the teacher in the secondary school, so that was the age up to 15.
Yeah.
So this is also a kind of my target, because I know that the teenagers changed a lot within the last couple of years, and having the option to compare their behavior, to see how they behave now, how they grow, what they focus, what they like, what they hate, like that gives me a lot of insight. So it's not only the ability, the emotional intelligence, but it's also the experience. Like you need to simply be able to get everything. Like if you're open to every single person you listen, you see how different people are, and then you're able to recognize what differences click very well together, what don't. And then I also had a chance a couple of times to be recruited for the team. So this person will not click into always not to the different areas. Like one person is a caller, but then you also need a person that will be able to read map very well, or that will be talking quite a lot. So you need to be able to find those people. And critical is in here to have the people with the same goals. Like if they are having different goals, then no matter how skilled the players are, they will live together. So that is also something that is really, really important. And that gives you the experience. The more you work with people, the more you know what to focus on, the more you know how to fix, and the quicker you know whether the team will click together or not. And this is also something that the experience it gives you.
Super interesting. Like, it seems to me that part of the job also entails a little bit of education, right? So a lot of people, and it's no fault to anyone, really, it isn't. And I truly believe that just have a lack of understanding, a lack of education in certain areas. So for example, a lot of people don't understand the importance of your diet and nutrition when it comes to performance. So whether that's if you're, grossly undervaluing calories or grossly undervaluing water, for example, something like that, that people just don't have that knowledge. And the more I listen to this, the more I'm like, damn, I don't have the knowledge that you do, right? So it seems that one of the things could be that when you're going into these scenarios, when you're going into these jobs, that this sort of consulting in a way, I guess, seems like a decent way to describe it. When you're working with these teams, it seems like you might have to educate coaches, analysts, players, the right way to deal with certain situations, for example.
Not to lie to you, work with the players is like 35-40% of my work. 60% of my work is to work with the managers, with the coach, very often with the owners of the companies, of the esports teams as well, because they need different perspective. And myself having views or insight from different teams, I'm capable of showing them, hey, you're going wrong direction, let's try to maybe do something else, go somewhere else. And I am never a type of person that is on the spotlight. I'm not a person that wants to be on the spotlight, because my work is in the background. If I am, let's say, very visible, but the players are maybe not comfortable, right? So for me, it's like critical to be somewhere, behind that, I do my stuff, and I'm not a type of a person that will be on the stage or will be supporting them, or on the stage, right? But I'm somewhere in the background. I'm observing them, how they behave, for example, during the pick and bans or, during the tournament. So then when we have a break, I can tell, hey, you're really stressed out. Let's just do something about it. So for me, being somewhere at the back or, watching them from the audience perspective, the players, I mean, gives me quite a lot, because I can read and I can tell what's their behavior. And very often, when we were in the Riot studio and I was watching at my team, after the pick and ban phase, I came, to the back, and I was like, listen, he's so stressed out that, there might be there might be a problem. And then during the next weeks or days, I'm with the players, I'm a person that is capable to fix it.
Sure.
So for me, gathering the information, having this view, having this perception, and having this option to see them, it's really, really important.
Super interesting, and I think that leads quite nicely onto the next sort of topic that we were going to talk about, is to do with the working with all the different teams that you've worked with. This was astonishing. This was amazing. When I was flicking through the website, I was like, okay, oh my goodness, more. And they're not like, it's not like little names. So just correct me if I'm wrong, but Fnatic,
Yep.
TSM,
Correct.
Origin,
Consulting only.
Roccat, which for people that aren't aware of the LCS and the history with the EU LCS, Roccat were a huge org in the EU LCS. Had been there for many years. Unfortunately, they weren't in the LEC at the moment, but one of the teams that maybe replaced them, I don't really know how the LEC worked, but was Rogue. So that's a bit more of a recent one that you've been working with Rogue. Firstly, what's it like working with the different regions? So EU and NA are completely different regions for a bunch of different reasons. Playstyle is completely different. If you look at MSI that's going on at the moment, the playstyle for G2 is completely different to TL. The way that European organisations run and work seems to be quite different to the way some American organisations run and work. Is there anything that you can pick out that you've learned that's really interesting from some of the teams that was like, okay, look, working with TSM, this was so different to working with Roccat, for example? What was some of the big differences?
It's a different type of work that I've done with TSM than I've done with Roccat or Fnatic, because what I'm doing is I'm taking projects with different teams. Now with TSM, it was slightly different work, because my work was not with the players, but it was with the staff. So we were fixing an issue that was in the general level. I tell you that definitely the organizations have different focus and different priorities. Let's say that when you look at organizations, every single organization is different. And, TSM is a type of organization when there's a lot of Europeans in there as well. So, when it comes to the players and it comes to the environment and so on, it's not that different. But in terms of how they approach the environment, their work, and the work ethics, this is a little bit different. I think the NA got into the level where they get into the more, let's say, they're treating this job on a more serious way than the Europeans are.
Okay.
Because for some of the players, being an esport professional, it's still kind of a fun. So big part of my job is still reminding them that, hey, you've just started your first job, so you need to be serious about it. And for some of the players in Europe, it's still this kind of a perception that I'm doing something for fun and I'm being paid. And the organizations are not happy about that approach. That's that approach from the players.
Sure.
So this is something that I'm very often changing. In NA, I think they're more serious about it. So if I would be spotting one big difference, is that you expect this work ethics, this professionalism on the high level from the first day when you are in the organization. So that would be something I guess hit me straight away.
Interesting, because one of the first things that I've always noticed and spoken about is a lot of the time, for example, if you're in a restaurant or you're in a bar or a pub or whatever that may be, and someone comes over to take your order for your food, and they're not very good at it. My first reaction isn't necessarily that it's always the person that's ordering, taking your order. It's not necessarily always their fault, because it could have been things like training, for example. Maybe they haven't been trained how to properly do that. Maybe it was from a top-down approach. I won't make you answer any questions about that, because I don't want you to call anyone out. But it's an interesting thought that maybe this professionalism doesn't always come from the people necessarily. It might be from the top down. It could be that the organisation isn't necessarily fostering a good environment, or it couldn't. Yeah. It's not necessarily fostering that hard work that needs to be fostered in that scenario. You know, maybe.
But sometimes I need to jump in here, because sometimes it's not like that. Because when you're recruiting a player and you have no other option available right now, so let's say that all the junglers right now that were on a level that you would like them to be are taken. So what options do you have? You take someone new, someone that is not experienced. You take an 18 years old person, then you need to teach the person everything from the start. And very often it's not only the strategy, it's not only the game knowledge and so on, it's also teaching them how to live. So how to do the laundry, how to clean after themselves, how to live with 5 people on the same roof, not to get into fights and not to, let's say, interfere each other's area. So, you know, it's also like that. And some organizations, if they have an option to pick someone that will have all those little assets, like life assets with them, they would pick a person like that instead of a player that is just starting. That is why when you jump into the esport, it's really important that you know what you want, right? So I want to be professional, so I act like one, right? So I need to act like one. If I want to be a professional and I act like a kid, then what we're talking about, you know?
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I mean, I've spoken to a few people about this, and the idea of gaming houses is a really, really interesting one, a really confusing one. And I think we're seeing a bit of a shift away from gaming houses more to a workspace and a living space, if you know what I mean, which I think is so much healthier. But there is...
I like it.
You prefer that?
Yeah.
I would agree. I think that's much better that way. But... for example, you look at the UK and you look at England, one of the big things is you sort of do what's your GCSEs, which is your first set of big exams, and then you do your A-levels or your B-Tech in some scenarios, which is your second sort of exams, and then you go to university. So you leave home, go uni. And that's quite a normal pathway. I would say the majority of 18-year-olds do that. So that sort of year that they have at university, that first year where you don't do a lot of work, the truth is you don't do a lot of work. You spend more time doing university stuff. You learn how to cook, maybe. You learn how to clean, all that sort of stuff. That sort of learning curve isn't necessarily there for people that are playing video games. And for those who are going into esports, you go into this scenario where you're not having that time to learn, understand things. You go straight in, job. And it is a job. And for some people, it's 16 hours a day at a computer, which is crazy to put an 18, 19-year-old through.
That actually shouldn't happen. You know, that amount of hours. Like if the organization is forcing a player to spend that much time in front of a computer, that's, you know, within a year or two will be burned out. But you mentioned something else. You mentioned that that people have this natural, you know, living curve. Yes, but if you look at sport environment, when you look at the sport classes, the parents are preparing the kids for that. So they're preparing them that, you know, you'll live with the team, right? You need to be able to do this way. So they are capable of, let's say, functioning on their own. We don't have that culture around esport yet, and I'm saying that it's starting, that the parents are looking more and more into being with their kids, with their, you know, with their kids that are, you know, proceeding the professional careers, and they're trying to help them out, which is good. And there are also a lot of players that see potential in the esport environment, and it's not necessarily that they want them to be just a player, but they want them to be a player and at the same time take studies. Like, you know, this is also capable. They take online studies, so distance learning and so on and so forth. So I do admire certain parents that first have their own rules, but at the same time they support the kids in what they want to do. So
It's really, really interesting. Hopefully that's something that I think when you think about the sort of timeline for traditional sports and the timeline for esports, traditional sports like football, to its core, in its essence, has been around for thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of years. In some, like, you really date football back to kicking a circular thing around. That's been around for a while. That's not something that's popped up in the last 15, 20 years. That's been around when it comes to esports, So hopefully that learning curve will be there, and we can learn. It was actually something I was talking about in the last podcast, where I really hope that this sort of we keep taking things from traditional sports, because I think there's a lot to learn, and hopefully that carries on that way. But one of the things that I hope we take a lot more from traditional sports, because I think it's got a lot better, even in my sort of short life of watching traditional sports, is diversity. Now, for me, one of the big things that I noticed when I was sort of flicking through you and your Twitter and that sort of stuff, was the panel regarding diversity and inclusion that you had in esports.
The Intel Extreme Masters, right?
Yeah, I believe so. So first of all, I want to congratulate you for that, because I think representing that and discussing topics like that is something that definitely needs to be done, and I think having the platform and the forum to do that is wonderful. But I kind of just wanted to get your views on the topic, really, because for those who aren't heavily involved in esports, and for those who just sort of from the outside in, most professional teams, if not 99% of professional teams, is male dominated. I think there's one in Germany, I believe, and I think it's called Out of the Blue, which has a female roster. There was one in, I think it was Turkey or Russia, I can't remember, that was a female roster as well. But you don't see, the truth is, you don't see a lot of females in esports from a coaching position or things like that. That's my view anyway. I could be completely wrong, because I don't see the backroom staff, and maybe that's where the diversity really lies. But how severe is the lack of diversity and inclusion when it comes to esports from your experiences?
Actually, it's a huge subject, and it will be quite difficult to give you like the view on it like really briefly. But I can tell you that females are not exposed to the professional level as much. So if one would say, hey, girls are worse than guys in esports, so why should we hire them? It's mostly because women, females, they don't have the option to perform on the stage, which is also kind of a skill that you need to learn. You need to learn how to react to people, to lights, to
noise
to
as well.
They also they don't have the option to have this stuff around them that will take care of them, right? In a way that they will be teaching them strategies and so on and so forth. So what girls do right now is that they mostly teach things themselves, or they copy the behaviors that are available online. So they look at games and strategies they're learning themselves. They don't have this experienced coaches. So one of the girls says, okay, so I'll try to coach, I'll try to research as much as I can to teach you this, to teach you that. So the process is like much slower.
Sure.
And also, if you look at football, or if you look at tennis, right? I'm a type of a person that believes that everything needs its own pace, and football used to be dominated by men, right? Now girls play too, and they are on a different level, but they have their own league and they compete. Tennis is exactly the same. We have ATM, we have WTA, right? So we have different leagues. But the thing is that and I need to say it, boys and teenagers look at girls playing, they're looking at different aspects. They're not looking at the player from the perspective as the investors should. So for me, the player, this is a marketing banner, right? So the player wears the t-shirts, brands, logos, and so on and so forth. And then the investors are attracted. They're coming into the team, and basically, everything starts rolling. But the female esports player is a different. So female different player will be attracted by different bunch of investors, and different investors will approach them. So that would be Sephora, that would be, I don't know, like all the female brands, right? And the thing is that the longer the male part of the society will be preventing girls from being exposed, the longer it will take, the longer we will have to wait for investors in that area. So as soon as we and the big organizations support the female players, right, girls competing and so on and so forth, they will come in. And the same happened during the Intel Extreme Masters in Katowice. The girls were also competing, right? And also the standard was brought in for a reason, because we wanted to show that there's this huge difference in how the girls are being perceived by the audience. Yes. So, there's a lot of stuff that needs to be done around this topic. Should be done as soon as possible. I think the big organizations should start setting an example of hiring girls and female teams so they can finally compete. Because as soon as we get the visibility into female gamers, as soon as we'll have investors, and if we have investors, we have big tournaments, and it will start rolling. So the female league will also start rolling. And one thing bothers me quite a lot is that I've been also not teaching, but I've been a guest in one of the Polish schools. It was a high school where there was a esports profile, and I had 2 groups of 20 students. Guess how many girls I had there?
I couldn't. Was it 0?
Yeah, but do you know what happened after I finished the classes and so on? Around 10 girls approached me if I have time and if I could brief them into what I was talking about, because they don't want to talk and they don't want to show themselves openly at school because the boys would be laughing at them. So you see, the education is really needed, and as soon as we get the visibility and we stop discriminating that girls are worse and they can't do this, they can't do that, accepting those different groups and diverse groups, we will have results there. So basically there's a lot of stuff that needs to be done, and I think we will get there. We will get there, but we need time. We need examples.
I think it's interesting because if you take it from traditional sports, right, as you said with football, men and women don't compete against each other. In these sort of things, you don't have 5 men, 6 women on a football pitch. It doesn't work like that. And in tennis, it's an interesting one because a lot of people, there's mixed doubles, but a lot of people have been saying that they would love to see Serena Williams go up against Roger Federer, because obviously these 2 titans, absolutely, like Roger Federer's got 20 Grand Slams. I can't off the top of my head remember how many Serena's got, but to see something like that would be really interesting. Obviously it's difficult, and but you did say, do you think that the right thing to do would be to have a women's league for League of Legends, for example, or CSGO?
I think it's a good start. I mean, I admire the Girl Gamer Festival that was there last year in Portugal. Now they're growing. I think there's one in Sydney right now. So they're promoting the event. And the events are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So they're kind of creating little leagues or little tournaments where girls can actually show their skills. I know that there are some organizations that are taking girls for subs to the orgs because there are not that many male players.
Splice did it a couple of years ago when Yamato Cannon was there. I noticed that they had a female sub.
So it starts there. It starts happening. But for me, the pace of growing is a little bit too slow. And it's mostly because no big organization is actually showing the example, showing that, hey, we've got a main roster, we've got academy, but we also have a female team, right? And as soon as those organizations will start showing it, the girls, like, imagine if for example, I don't know, like Origin or TSM or Fnatic, like they would say like, okay, we're recruiting for the female. The girls will be not killing, but they will be competing so much.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, no, I agree.
They want that visibility, they want to be branded, they want to be shown, and there's a lot of potential, but the pity is that the potential is hidden. Very often girls are pretending that they're not girls during the games, in the games that you have this voice chat, so they're not saying anything or they're not typing, and I understand that. I mean, when I started my job in esports, it was not so easy. And yes, there are no rules that you can't compete, like the female teams can't compete on during the Intel Extreme Masters or something. Of course, there are no rules like that, but the girls have no exposure. So if you're not exposed to the lights, to everything, you can't compete on a big stage because you will lose, and you will lose not because of a skill, but you'll lose because of the lack of experience. So yeah, so that was like
condensed down. No, brilliant. I think that's really interesting. It's something that, as you say, it's not. It doesn't have the exposure. The shame is there's not as many conversations that go on. I think conversations are the key to change. That's my opinion. In so many different ways. I think when you're looking to change something, personally, my belief is the conversation has to happen in order for that to go ahead. And I think the more conversations like that, the more little bits where someone that listens to this goes, oh yeah, of course, like why don't women have as much exposure as men do?
You know, it's not that. I mean, I think that the organizations forgot how many fantastic investors they could brought in, but focus on females, like even the clothes branding, even like the cosmetics and so on. Like these are the people that want to, the companies that want to invest, but we just need to show them that there is an option to invest. And you know, Gillette is already, you know, investing in the males. Why not to get Gillette into the females? Why not to get other brands, right? So there is money there, you know, there's money there for organizations, but still, you know, the organizations need to digest, need to get that direction. And as soon as, you know, the big events and the events will be organized for females, we'll get those, you know, those investors.
Just quickly before we move on to the next thing, the thing for me is obviously supply and demand is such a massive thing when it comes to economics, and whilst the supply of females comparative to males in this space is probably smaller, there's probably more men that play these games and are a part of esports than there are females. That doesn't mean that the demand is non-existent. It doesn't mean that the eyes aren't there, if you know what I mean. So, for example, you look at a female brand. You mentioned Sephora. It could be something like Pandora as well, something like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just because females they don't have the same number of participants doesn't mean that there are no participants. Does that make sense? And I think that's just something that's a sort of a switch, a realization that eventually will happen. That's like, oh, females do play video games. They are involved in sports. That makes sense.
The thing is that organizations that you mentioned, Pandora, like girls love buying those. We as females, we are more keen to buy stuff that, you know, that are advertised on our favorite teams t-shirts. Like we love buying. Men are not as crazy as we are. So even though the potential may be smaller, I think the audience may be much bigger. And look at
more
Razer.
Captive.
They released this whole set. Razer released the whole gaming set for females. I was trying to buy it. I couldn't because it was sold out straight away.
That was the pink mouse and keyboard. Is that the thing?
Yeah, the Quartz or something like that. So, you know, the organizations get there, but really
just a bit slow, a bit too slow in some circumstances. Totally get it. It's a difficult one for me to traverse. Obviously, being male, I don't want to sound like some bigot and some misogynist, because obviously that's not what I am. But it's a very difficult conversation to have, and I think it's better when you do more the talking than I do. But I totally agree with your standpoints. Is what I'll say.
Imagine what would happen if a shoe company would sponsor a female team. Oh my god!
I think that would be game changing. Especially when you see the success that like 100 Thieves have had. I don't know how much you follow North America, but the success that they've had with like StockX and things like that. It's like, especially capitalizing on the sort of sneaker culture as well. I think that is a great point. I think it could be huge. But we're sort of wrapping it up. There's a couple, like one more topic, and then the standard question that I ask everyone on the podcast. So I noticed that you're currently searching for options as a performance coach going into the summer split for the LEC. I presume that extends to other spaces as well, not just the LEC. But what would be the ideal for you? So one thing that's really interested me is the idea of sitting at home. You're in Poland, I think it's where you are at the moment. Me in the UK, and helping someone that's in Berlin. You know, is that an ideal for you, or would you rather be sort of entrenched there in Berlin, understanding what's going on?
I mean, it's yes and no, because I'm capable of traveling, and I've been traveling like every 2-3 weeks I've been there. So basically, when I was doing my research and the whole process of recognition and so forth, then I traveled there to deliver. I gave them 2 weeks to digest. Also, the coach and the manager was at the same time checking whether they were applying my knowledge. If not, then what was the reason, and so on. And then I was coming back, and and basically I was continuing my work. So I'm not focused that I'm only, I can do it from Poland or from Berlin, because my work can be done from any corner of the world.
Yeah.
And, it's not a problem for me to travel to NA, because, it's absolutely fine, because my work is needed, but it also needs to be controlled. And I'm a type of a person, as I told you, I'm in the background. And if I'm with the team all the time, I will not be the person that is on the third chair, right?
Yeah.
You've got the organization, you've got the players, and I'm on the third chair. So I'm a kind of a mediator between the organizations, and so I would lose that, that chair, and I will be with them either too much or too little. So I need to find this perfect balance. I don't mind moving in or somewhere if I'm needed. It's absolutely okay. But I think that right now, the way how I work, and that I'm with the players before the games in the studio. I arrive a bit sooner to deliver my workshop, to check how the trainings are going. I also work from home a lot, so I listen to their trainings. I'm watching their games. They're having the scrums. So a lot of work in the background, and I focus on totally different aspects than the coach and the manager. So for me, when there's a training, I'm more listening to checking whether they are speaking to each other, they're listening to each other, whether there's like so on. So I'm looking at different aspects there. And imagine that I'm in a place with the coach, where the coach is trying to talk about the game, discussing the strategies and so on, and I'm trying to bump in with my stuff. That will not be productive. So the moment I have my blog with the examples and with everything that is needed, for me, I have their pure focus for the time needed. And very often I deliver my workshops without a coach or without a manager. So for them, it's easier to open up as well. So you see, having me for a distance is also an advantage.
Yeah.
But if I'm needed there, like very often, I'm capable of traveling. So it depends on the team needs, not on me.
Yeah, the flexibility is good, I guess. And to have that outside perspective of sort of the God figure looking in is always a good way to do it, rather than, you know what I mean? Like, rather than being like, as in sitting there and listening to everything that everyone's saying, like maybe having the sort of step back probably isn't a bad thing, But really interesting.
And it's actually, when you're not too much with someone and that you talk, it's easier for you. Like, you see all the faces all the time, and then all of a sudden I'm arriving, or I'm just, hey guys, do you want to talk about anything? I'm available. And Skype is like, you actually can, and then they just come in as like, oh, I'm just totally like burnt out, I don't want to play anymore, and so on. So easier for them to talk with me like that. And not to lie, the players very often there are introverts, so for them it's easier to talk over the computer, not necessarily constantly seeing my face and being open into my eyes, because very often when I speak with my players, I do it either on TeamSpeak or on Skype, but without the video camera. So it's easier for them to communicate.
I think it's good as well, and this is one of the things that I wanted to say, and hopefully this doesn't come across in the wrong way, but to have a female perspective in this role, I think is something that could be really, really key. As I say, I hope that doesn't come across in the wrong way. But having a different, having a male mindset and a female mindset are two different things. They really are. And to be able to sort of transition from your coach, who might be a male, to the likes of yourself, who's got a different outlook, got a different sense, got a different way of dealing with situations, I think is a really positive thing. So I think that certainly ticks a few other boxes for yourself and any organisations that you've worked with.
And the fun fact is that I think when we look at last year's World Championship from Europe, I think if we look at the 11 players, I think 7 or 8 were the players I used to work with.
Okay.
So that also shows me that the way how I'm developing the players is not a wrong way.
Sure.
It means that gives the results somewhere, you know. And the thing is that my work is the players right away is by the players that are 20 plus, that when they have some experience.
Sure.
When I work with players under 20, it usually takes time for them to digest. I mean, I had a couple of players writing to me messages that, hey, you know, last year we've been working together. I was not applying. I was applying actually during your workshops, but now I really appreciate it and I'm using it right now, and I'm having it. So I had a couple of players that were realizing after some time that my work actually get them into the place they are right now. So yeah, actually the funny thing is that every time I'm watching a game or League of Legends, every team there is my player, you know, there's the person I used to coach, and it's really difficult for me to be a person that is, you know, what team should I be cheering for? Like,
yeah.
So it's always, you know, fun thing to watch. But right now, you know, we've got Cheetu, we've got Caps in there, baby. No, actually, Faker is a baby Caps right now. So we've got,
I mean, amazing. I think it's a good point. I like the fact that maybe it takes a little bit longer because, you know, development obviously comes at different times for different people. The development that I've had within 6 months to a year, and that's when I was 16 going 17, when I was 17 going 18, then 18, 19, like all these times, like you think of what's happened over the space of 12 months, and you're like, oh, the things that has changed, the development that I've had, not me personally, but generally people have over 12 months is crazy. So it's good that that information should have been applied earlier. I think I saw one of your tweets where someone was saying that I wish I'd applied it earlier, and you obviously you can't look back. Hindsight's 2020, isn't it? But
I'm
to
really
apply
happy
it
now
is great.
It stayed, you know, it stayed somewhere here, and it was supposed to. And you know, I remember that person that wrote that, and I remember that he was such a pain in the ass during my workshop. And I said, like, you know what? Next split, if you don't apply it, you will not be in the league. You will not be in the LCS. And he was not. And then he came back after that split. But that was the respect I got because he was not listening. And then he was like, oh shit, she was right. You know?
Damn it. Amazing. Super interesting. And then the last question, the thing that I wrap up all the podcasts with, the question is, what is one small thing you could teach myself, the listeners or the viewers, from your world? As I said in this, we've had someone said a little bit of their language at one point. We've had people talking about their favourite quotes, their favourite books. So whatever it is that you can think of, is there any piece of advice, something tangible maybe that people that are listening can do?
If you want to learn, I definitely invite you to my lectures. I'm lecturing in one of the Polish universities.
Amazing.
So I'm teaching their psychological aspects of esports, and this is a really, really catchy subject, and I'm just showing the students how players work, how team work, how the whole environment works. So for me, I do hope that more and more universities will be open to have studies, you know, directed totally into esport. But to be serious right now, I think if you want to have a good grasp of a team and of how team function, I definitely recommend you reading listening some of the podcasts from Patrick Lencioni. This is a guy that totally focuses on business. I love his approach and his perception on team, but he looks at team business in a business setting. The good thing is that you can apply his theories, his knowledge into the esport environment, but you need to be careful because, you know, there are those really thin lines in between fixing and forcing, you know.
Sure.
And if you don't have experience and you try to force some of the theories he's having into the environment, you might simply break a team instead of making it.
Sure.
So So a really good understanding is needed on what he's talking about and what is the right moment to introduce some of his theories, some of his exercises, and so on and so forth. So if I would recommend something, a takeaway, definitely Patrick Lencioni's. And what you can learn from, you can learn that there's always a good moment to take a break. Recently, I'm coaching a CS:GO team. I'm learning this environment, and thank God my team is really patient with me, because it's like totally different environment than Legends. Yeah, absolutely. But my boys are fantastic. It's the XCOM team, it's the Polish team, and what I've learned is that there's always this moment that a team is in a winning streak and everything is going fantastic, and there's this enthusiasm, and let's say that there's like a 14-7, and then you lose 1, 2, 3, and 4 in a row, and then teams very often are waiting quite a lot of time to get a break and to have this relaxing moment. So when you see that there is this tendency that you're losing points because something is not clicking, you need to make a break as soon as you can. Like, you shouldn't be waiting until the score is like 14-14, because that is too late. You're already shut down, you're already stressed out, and you will not win that game. No, period. It's not going to happen. So the sooner you realize that there is a losing streak, or there is this losing potential, you need to take a break as soon as possible. And it doesn't have to fix anything. It's just a break that you just need to have this breath, breathe out. I don't know, if you have 30 seconds of break, it's a good moment also to speak with the players, like, okay, what's the plan, what we continue, what do we do? It's enough. It's enough. And very often this break is also putting the other team off the balance, because they start thinking, okay, what they're doing right now. So it's also playing this little mental games, which I'm also teaching my players.
Sure, yeah.
That's dangerous, but I'm teaching my players quite a lot how to mentally break the other person.
Yeah. Interesting.
So far, it worked.
No, it's great. Yeah. I really like the idea. It links to something that I've been saying a lot on the podcast. I had a listener sort of basically ask a question. There's a couple of little things that he can do. Because he understood the bits about performance, and he was in the gym, he'd been eating a lot better, all of these sort of things. But one of the things he was saying was that when it comes to the actual time that he's playing the game, like, it's slightly different. Like, is there anything you can advise? Because he's just plays in solo queue, he was looking to go professional. And one of the things that I said, that from my experience, it's very much entrenched in traditional sports, was to play games in sets of 3 or 5. So if you're playing solo queue League of Legends, you play, say for example, you play in a set of 3. So you play 3 games, not in a row, but in a group. So it could be that there's a 20-minute break in between, or a 2-minute break. But think of it as 3 in a row. And the reason being is because if you play 3 and you win 2 and lose 1, you've won the set. That's amazing. If you've lost 2 and you win 1, then that's the time where you really, really take a break. But taking the break, it basically forces you into taking breaks, if that makes sense. So it's something that we do a lot in tennis coaching, something that we've done a little bit in football coaching in some of the organisations I've worked with. But even if things are going well, taking a break to just sort of reset, have a think mentally, like, what have I done well in that scenario? What could be done better? How can I improve on this? Is something that I recommended, and something that I've tried a lot and experimented with, and it's shown good results. He said it was fantastic for him. It reset him mentally. He noticed the best time for him was when he had been not tilted as such, but could feel he was getting tilted. And he could feel those 2 games lost. Point. And he was like, if I play 1 more, maybe I can break the losing streak. And that's the dangerous territory, isn't it? Where that break really is useful.
Never go there.
No, perfect.
The funny thing is that the players, they always think that we need to push, and they're pushing themselves into the situation when there's like the frustration is so high. Like, it's also with I have very often the questions like, I'm tilting in a solo queue, and I'm asking, so why do you play the solo queue? And they're like, I want to be better. So okay, so if you want to be better, what goals are you setting yourself for the solo queue? What are you training right now? If you just want to jump into the high level of Elo, you will not do. you're not training. So you need to have goal for the solo queue. You need to be practicing. And if you, for example, set yourself a goal for the solo queue, that you're going to practice, I don't know, last hitting, or you're going to practice warding, or like, I don't know, like whatever. And then you go into it, the game will win itself automatically.
Yeah.
Because you're getting better, not just winning, not just pushing. And very often the young teams that have no coach or just trying to compete somewhere and so on, those young teams, they are their trainings look like that they go into a solo queue of 5 and they're just trying to win everything. And they're asking me like, okay, so what should we do? I'm like, okay, start with what you're practicing. What is your goal right now? And they're like, and not to lie, many organizations, even in the professional environment, they have no goals. And I've been working with organizations where I jumped in and I asked like, okay, so what is the team goal for the next year? And then they were like looking at me and I was like, what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay. So team can be professional, right? But it is as professional as we make it. And the more professional people you get into the team, the more advice you will get from different perspectives on how to make this team a really, really good environment to work in.
So
and it needs to be comfortable for the players.
Very interesting. Well, that's wrapped up all my questions. Firstly, thank you ever so much for your time. It's been really, really interesting. Super, super interesting for me. I know that anyone that's listening is going to get as much enjoyment and value out of it as I have. So I really appreciate you giving over your time. I know you're busy at the moment. You've got kids and loads of stuff to deal with. So I appreciate...
They're sleeping. It's fine.
But the life of a mother's a difficult one, I'm sure. I can't speak from experience, but yeah.
Mother of dragons,
But yeah, so firstly, thank you ever so much. If people did want to find you, if they were interested in getting in touch with you, anything like that, where's the best place for them to do so?
It's Twitter. I mean, I've got open DMs, like feel free, poke me. I mean, I receive lots of comments from the students, from players, also, from the manager. I'm happy to support. I mean, I'm not replying right away. If something can wait, I let it wait. But yeah, if something is needed urgently, I'm available. So feel free to find me there. Also on my Facebook, it's not as visible as my Twitter, but it's also there, and it's also spelled the same. It's Sired with double R. Yeah. Poke me.
Amazing. So for anyone that is listening, the links will be in the description for the place to find you on your Twitter.
Thank you so much.
So yeah, if there's anything...
I've got actually one question.
Sure, shoot.
When do we see you in eSport?
I hope soon. Do you know what the essence of all of this was? It was education for me. The reason I started this podcast was to try and have interesting conversations with many different people as I could. Just for me to learn was the core of it. To be brutally honest, I wanted to learn as much as I can. And I thought, well, if I'm having these conversations, maybe these conversations are going to be interesting for other people to listen to. And if I'm asking the questions, it's that classic thing in a classroom, where someone...
No, it's always...
Yeah. Does it make sense when someone... teachers at my school always used to say, if you have a question, ask it, because there's probably another person that has that question. So I was thinking, if I have the questions, then it's got to be someone somewhere's having those questions as well, right? So for me, that's where all of this sort of stems from. So when will I be in esports? I have no idea. I'm doing a little bit of work with some teams in the UK at the moment. One specifically that's I'm helping with some performance coaching, but who knows? I'm really enjoying what I'm doing, and I'm enjoying having conversations like this. So
Fantastic.
When that happens, I have no idea, but hopefully soon. We'll see how it goes. But yeah.
Okay.
So as I said, thank you ever so much for your time. I hope
Thank you so much.
I hope that anyone listening has had an enjoyable time like we have. I hope you have as well. But yeah. I hope everything goes amazing in the next couple of weeks for you, and hopefully we get some interest. So thank you ever so much for your time. Thank you to everyone that's listening. I hope you've enjoyed it, and we will speak soon. Have a wonderful day.
Yeah.